Something like 50. I'll stop.
And just getting sure that everyone. So we have got some people floating around. They're very aware that there's just general nattering for the now, as we wait for people to arrive. And just checking that Niels has no sound. So I'll just give him a message and see if I can help. But carry on nattering. Sorry.
Yeah, yeah. The monitoring that's been done so far, they've already picked up, I think, three separate periods of substantial slowdown in that current. Um, in the deep sea current, the cold water that heads south, that then drives the warm water heading north on the surface. So it is definitely changing. Um, and the long-term information that the climate teams are working to seems to suggest that this has happened something like 10 to 15 times before in the fossil record. So it does happen. That would certainly throw everything into complete disarray.
And very little chance to adapt and plan.
Yeah, interesting paper came out early last year. I think it was Van Westen et al., where they did massive piece of modelling on it. I think the project was like 10 million quid's worth of work because it all involved extensive use of supercomputer time. And they reckoned that the change could take place over 10 years with a constant year on year drop in temperature for winter. So that's roughly how long you'd have to adapt. I can't see it happening really. And the really worrying thing is they said the earliest the model suggested it could start happening is 2030.
Oh, what a challenge and what fun to look forward to without the government really getting on and delivering significant change and the supply chain. I'm seeing a lot of the supply chain waking up to the reality a little more and a little more concerned about the security of their business and receiving ingredients to produce their goods.
Yeah, yeah. I think an awful lot of people are starting to get just how serious it could be now, other than the politicians.
Yep.
We've got a good number of people ticking in just now. So we're on about. So I'll give it another minute and then I'll get us formally started. So, well, there are a few names that I recognize.
Nim, I don't know if it's worth you trying to edit your name.
I know, I was thinking that, considering that I'm effectively still Cheryl. Um,
The three dots in the
Rename, there
top.
we go.
Yeah, you should be able to edit your name. I keep getting confused. Like I see messages and I think she's not here.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah, brilliant.
That's a bit better. I particularly enjoyed our ridiculous multiple Cheryls in today's meeting because we all accidentally logged in using this account, which is the paid webinar one, and promptly confused the hell out of poor Martin, who basically Cheryl is our finance person. And the idea of you having free Cheryls is both wonderful for managing finance, but also terrifying in terms of accountability to you.
Yes. Yeah. I look at the names on the bottom of the screens, and if it doesn't match up, it does my head in because I'm just think I know that's not right.
Yeah. Right, we'll give it another minute just for people to feed in, and then we'll get started. Um, so. Okay, I think we'll get started from there. So, hello everyone. If there's any issues, then feel free to drop us a message in the webinar chat. Or if you've got any questions that are going along that you'd like to have answered as well, then please pop them in there. On a more personal note, I'm Nim. I'm the country manager for Scotland for Nature Friendly Farming Network. It's lovely to have you all here on what I can only describe as some of the blackest nights I feel like I've felt of the soul for a while. I am so grateful that the 21st of December is soon upon us and then I can move through into a period of light again. We're joined today by a number of speakers from our Scotland-based Nature Friendly Farming Network. Some of you, I'm sure, will recognise them from agricultural shows, chats and webinars, and even off the TV, Martin, from a variety of things. And today we're just kind of chatting about, and I promise we won't do webinars all the time, but when it's cold and miserable and dark and you don't know what the roads are like, then they are a good option. So we're going to crack on with a few things. And we're just going to talk today a little bit about the fact that Scotland is essentially heading towards a whole farm plan as part of the compliance. So if we want our monies, then we've got to do a whole farm plan. However, we're genuinely at the network quite a big fan of a whole farm plan because my general take on it is that if you can't understand your whole farm, how can you plan anything? But I do recognise that with the changes with the whole farm plan and the agricultural reform policy going through, that this feels like a thing that could be a bit of a stickler. Is that as the whole farm plans that we currently use actually what we want? Is it useful? Are we just doing compliance for compliance sake? And so I guess today is just a bit of a chance to just chat about this and have some frank, open discussion about it. Because I don't know if we've really had that other than, over the fence with the neighbour or, passing by someone else on the way to the livestock market. And these, I guess, are the sort of chats that we want to have. So we're going to have Martin Lines speak first of all and just introduce himself and then talk a little bit about whole farm planning and why that fits in with a nature-friendly farming context. We'll then go on to Kate Mitchell, who I did just see her husband das away in the background, so I'm assuming that he's on child responsibility there and someone has gotten out of bed. Um, and she's a vet and a farmer down in the borders, Aaron Mitchell's farm, so sheep and beef, and very much going to chat about the farm planning that she was doing and how that's fitted in. So really interesting. Then we're going to have Ian join us, who's part of our steering group in Scotland. Ian is a retired farmer from England, but now lives up here in Scotland and also works for government agencies. And he's going to talk a little bit about that kind of psychological thing of why it is that we should question compliance for compliance sakes when bureaucracy is kind of a bureaucracy issue that maybe is actually a bit hellish. And then also how to just get yourself into a positive mind frame to actually be able to deal with these things and make compliance the best that we can for ourselves. So with no further ado, I'm going to hand over to Martin and let Martin introduce everything.
Lovely, and thank you very much, Nim, and lovely to join this discussion and webinar. So I'm Martin Lines. I farm in Cambridgeshire, down in England. I'm also the chief exec for the Nature Friendly Farming Network. And for the Nature Friendly Farming Network, I think the approach to a whole farm thinking and plan can actually help build resilience, thinking about how do we stack in various opportunities, challenges, and meet expectations going forward. So for me, and I think for many farmers, thinking about a whole farm plan that should actually underpin your farm business plan, looking at the whole of the landscape that you are managing or in control of your farm, your croft, and thinking about what are the things that you may be causing harm. Have you got a soil loss issue, a pollution issue, or something else that may be not meeting current regulatory baselines? So you've got to improve that, or there's a chance of inspection. And what are the things that are kind of working well, and what bits can we stack together? So for me, and on our own farm, we sort of looked at our whole farm, what do we want to do with our business, what kind of investments can I do, but what can one thing stack against and support the other? So it was looking at the whole farm, where are the good bits, where are the not so good bits, and where are the bits I quite frankly know I'm not meeting the requirements I should be through environmental legislation, water quality, air quality, that regulatory baseline that we're not is not always been enforced by governments, but is increasingly a focus of governments to start with everyone that's at a level, and then it's that additionality on top. So it's focusing on where we have in our farm business and in our actions and operations that we may be causing some harm. Sometimes we may know we're doing it, but we're trying to turn a blind eye, or areas that we are trying to do the right thing. So it's like, how can we mitigate nutrient loss from from our fields? How do we mitigate soil loss? How do we handle pesticides safely? How do we handle manures safely and correctly that meet legal requirements, but also give us financial benefits? If we can get the best from the resources we have on our land and the produce and the products that we produce, that's better for our business. So then we can sort of stack in that change of approach, change of thinking to the opportunities within our business. What do we need to produce, grow, manage? How do we build that into our 5 and 10 year business plans and our thinking of how do we run our farms? What we're going to get profitability from? Where do we find investments to drive those changes that may be causing some problems or may build more resilience into our own farm? So for us, we looked at our pesticide handling, our nutrient balance, how much nutrients have we got in our soils? What testing maybe we want to do, and how can that give us evidence that actually we may have enough nutrients in our soil that we may not need to buy more? So there's a clear cost saving. We can put the right nutrients in the right place. So thinking about soil testing, soil carbon testing. If we got improve our organic matter in our soils may become more resilient in the years to come through weather impacts and climate changes. So we can sort of build that as in a plan of building resilience for our own farm, building opportunities to then look at where may there be public or private funding. We often talk about what will government be doing for us and where does that come, but we're also seeing increasingly awareness from supply chain. They also want to contribute to building resilience into businesses and soil and systems. So is there money and opportunities to unlock that fits that into our business plan? So then that looks at that whole farm. What can I get the best from my output, my commodities, my crops, my meat, livestock, and where are those other environmental benefits that we can stack in that reduces harm, but increase pollination and pollinators and predatory insects, improving soil health and crop grass growth that reduces inputs to livestock. That actually all of those things start to build into our businesses, and we can become more mindful of those environmental improvements and soil health improvements and nutrient improvements, reduce costs, we build resilience into our businesses. So it's like, where are those win-wins? Where are those areas that we need to invest, or I may get help to invest in to drive those improvements? And to sort of stand back and look at the whole farm, look at the areas that we may have flooding issues, nutrient loss, access issues, or other things, and then trying to turn those into solutions going forward. So it's about that whole farm, looking at what goes on, making a plan, meeting those targets, particularly in the Welsh context, in the Scottish context of what will those plans look like, where will those to meet those requirements to unlock future funding, and actually being able to demonstrate to the customer, which is society giving us revenue streams and payments, but also to our customers, the general public and our supply chain, of the improvements we can deliver and why we should be a source of produce from them that is better than maybe other places or other countries that are delivering that sustainability and nature friendly outcomes that the society really looking from our landscapes. And I'll stop there, and I look forward to this discussion.
No, that's great. Thank you very much, Martin. Does anyone have any questions at this stage that they'd like to drop in the chat, or if you want to raise your hand, then I can allow you to ask your question directly. Oh, we've got one from Mike here. Hi, Mike.
Hi there. I was just wondering whether the current sort of requirements for whole farm plans in Scotland sort of provide enough sort of spatial and temporal detail of sort of, for instance, soil health, water quality, biodiversity to make these decisions around, how can I improve your biodiversity and soil health going forward? I have heard that perhaps there isn't enough sort of detail provided in some of these, or the requirements to provide enough detail is there to make sort of key decisions around some of those points.
Yeah, I think you're starting from a very low baseline. There are many people that have been trying to encourage simplicity and really kind of make it plain and simple. Actually, nature's really complicated, and it's like some people are going to start at a very low level, at a basic place. Others are already doing stuff, and it's like so once you start and have a baseline, it's how do you build, and that's the role of the network and other farmers to help other farmers to build those building blocks into your system of how do you look at soil microbes or nutrients or other things that expand on that plan that somebody might want to get into soil health, others may want to get into grass health and systems. So each farm and each business can look at their own interests, but having a standardized baseline and accepting it's pretty low. You're going to need to accelerate it pretty quickly to get to where we really need to be.
Yeah, I would say that coming from, and I guess I raise my kind of policy wonk head at this stage, but I think it's been really introduced as a thing that we all kind of thought we should be moving towards, particularly from where we sit in a nature-friendly context. But it's really been introduced at the basis where it can create as little upset as possible. And unfortunately, when things are introduced at the little upset as possible, then sometimes they're quite ineffective tools, which doesn't help the argument that people have of why do I need to change to this as well. So I would say that I think it's a useful tool that I've seen come in, but at the moment it is shallow at best. But I suspect there'll be ambition to build on it. Go on, Mike. Sorry, you still have another question?
No, that's fine. Yeah, that's what I was thinking as well. But it sounds like there's going to be a requirement to add sort of more detail to these whole farm plans to make some of these sort of
I think
quite
that's what we'll see
decisions.
is
Yeah, yeah.
the way
Yeah,
that this has
thanks.
been invented, we'll see it as a thing that they'll build upon. That doesn't mean that we don't get a whole change of government at some point and they just chuck it out the window and we start off with a whole new tool that's really crap. So,
Thanks.
any other questions from anyone? If not, then I will shuffle on to Kate and yeah, let her take it away. Kate has slides, which is what this look is about, by the way. So Kate came prepared.
Sorry, just some technical difficulties. We're getting there. Can you see that? No.
Yeah. Stuart. There we
Yeah.
go. Yeah. Oh, that's me on me. How great.
Great.
You need to just
Yeah, it's coming. Our computer's just
there we go.
yeah, can you see that?
No, I think you've maybe shared the wrong window.
Just do it. Sorry, of course.
It's all right. Why don't you know, delegate this to the husband to get to work and you introduce yourself, Kate.
Otherwise, I can just make it smaller and talk through it. It was just to give a prompt, really. Well, I can see it. Yeah, I don't think they can see it, but I can. Oh, I'm so sorry about
All right, don't worry. I think it's like you're trap sharing your Zoom screen as opposed to the presentation screen.
Yeah, it's opposite that.
That's okay. Kate, do you want to crack on with introducing
Yeah, hi. So I'm Kate Mitchell. I farm in partnership with my husband Stuart, who's trying to help me, and his parents. We farm the Scottish borders in Hoyk, and we've got 442 hectares, mixed organic farm with cows, deer, and some arable. So we've got about 140 cows to the bull at the moment, which are all spring calving. The deer calving there in the summer. That's fine. So yeah, I've got a veterinary background. I'll just read off the slides. Yes, so Yes, so I've been helping with the farm administration side for the sort of past 6-7 years, and do all the accounts. And like everybody else, I suppose, finding that the admin is just increasing with farms. So I suppose if we don't go along with it and try and make the use of it, we have to do it anyway. So it's trying to find ways that we can oh yeah, sorry, it's just thrown me off. So what I was going to do with my slides was go through each stage of the whole farm plan. So first one being the animal health and welfare plan. I suppose the veterinary side of me always quite enjoys doing my health plan. I quite like it as a way to review the whole system and see where we're at and benchmark ourselves against ourselves every year. So how I try and make it easier is record data at key times of the year. So after calving, we write down lots of things, but any cows that have any problems, any mastitis, any cows that you've had to assist with the calving, any medications they've been given, and even at that point, if there's heifers that we already know we don't want to keep, we'll write that down. And again, at scanning, we write a lot of information down so that by the end of the year in December, we go through our health plan, and we look at antibiotic use, any illnesses, any deaths, any reasons that we want to cull any of the cows. And it's just a case of we've recorded all that information earlier in the year, it makes it a lot quicker, and we can it makes it a lot more useful. So what I was going to share was sort of some of the data that we keep and compare every year. So for example, we have been pushing quite hard at trying to intervene a lot less with our calving. So we've recorded every year how many cows we've needed to calve, and that's gone from 11% in 2022, and it's gone all the way down to 4%. So if you're not recording and looking at these things every year, you can miss when a problem early on until it gets to be a problem. If you can just, let's say, keep all your data and look at it, it makes it a lot easier. So the idea that it's not trying to make it not a tick box exercise. It's trying to make it where you're using it, it's a useful thing that you keep looking back at. So we use a farming program. Is that now working? Okay. We use a farming program where we can record everything. So if a cow needs any medication, we will just, let's say, you can take a photo on your phone, the date you gave it, put it into the computer, and then when it comes to the end of the year, when you're looking at everything, you can compare it all. And quite a lot of time we find, because we always sort of go through our animal health plan in December, and it's just the idea that it's the end of the year. How have we done this year? So we actually did it last week, and it's amazing how much you forget what you've done. So you can go, oh yeah, that did happen, or it's good to look back at the things that were good as well. We go, oh wow, we didn't lose any this year. We didn't lose any calves between weaning and 24 hours being born. So we were like, wow, that's really good. So it's good to remind yourself of what you're doing that's good, as well as looking for problems along the way. So yes, we try and compare things and I say that the more information you put into your health plan, the more you can get out. So yeah, that's the health plan. And then
no, just tell her in the policy.
oh yeah, next slide.
Name's got your slides.
Have you got the slides name? Is that? Yeah. So anyone can hear me.
Yeah, everyone can see it.
Yeah, I'm hoping everyone
sorry.
can see that. Can
Sorry,
I just get
waffling on. Thank you.
can one of the other panelists just let me know that you can see me presenting Kate's slides there?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Okay, so we're just on
okay.
the animal health and welfare plan with the table
Sorry, yeah.
scanning percentages and such on at the moment.
Yeah, so that's just, I suppose, a snapshot of some of the data that we look at. And it's just, as I say, if you can compare every year and you know you're heading in the right direction, or, you know, if we start to see a problem arising, you know, you look into it more and you say, well, why are we losing calves at that stage? Or again, I'm trying to think what else we record, but yeah, we try and we only do a 6-week bulling, so that's why our scanning percentage is low for anyone that has causal. I think that's quite low. We aim for 86%, so for that it's quite good, and we want to really be carving 80% in those first 3 weeks. And yes, that's about everything on that slide. I can go on about health plans for a bit longer, but that's probably another day. So yeah, the biodiversity audit, we took the opportunity when there was funding available to get a advisor in, I think it was not last year, the year before, to walk around, and it really good to get just somebody outside of your farm, because you can get quite focused on what you're doing. And again, when you're part of groups like NFFN, you see all the good things people are doing and you can kind of forget the broader picture. So I think someone coming in that's nothing to do with your farm and having a look and giving you, probably telling you what good things you're doing on your farm, but also telling you what you can improve was really good. And we really enjoyed that. And it gave us a good plan that we can refer back to. So again, sometimes you're that busy doing your farming side and your business side, you can forget a bit the broader picture. So having something to go, oh, we have a bit of time now, we're going to look back. What planting should we be doing? What improvements? Oh, we said we were going to do something to that pond. Why don't we do it now? So I think having that out, you can do these biodiversity plans yourself, but I think at least every other time you're doing it, maybe trying to get somebody outside of the farm is good. Yeah, so we use it to, yeah, as you say, it's just another part of your farm is the biodiversity. So it's making sure you don't lose sight of that. And yeah, the point that my husband said was just looking at those less productive areas of your farm. You know, there's always nature and there's always something you can be doing. Yeah, and the next one will be the carbon audit, I think. Yes, so we've been using AgriCalc, which I think most farmers will be doing the same. We've used advisors. We've done 3 now, so we've been trying to do them every 3 years. This year I did most of it. It was quite interesting. It's a lot of data and things that you've got to put in, and you do start thinking, well, is this actually making any sense and giving me any information? But I think these programs are just going to have to keep getting better the more data we put in. And it was just a way of looking at all our fuel use, our carbon, just, I suppose the less carbon you're using just makes better sense for nature, but also financially for a business. You know, the less that you're taking, and yeah, you can benchmark against other farms. It's trying to just say it's looking at it from looking at your farm business from a different perspective. I think the carbon audit, and then the next one, the pest management. We don't use. We have to do it for one of our inspections, but yeah, from an organic perspective, there's not a lot of information we put into it, but it is still good for us to look at it as a risk assessment, and that there is ways that we can avoid pests with that. Obviously, we can't use chemicals, so it's trying to get a step ahead and see the ways that we can do it otherwise. And then yeah, so things like, so we look at our organic rotation and what we're planting, and using livestock where we can. So we don't have sheep anymore, but we use calf sometimes, or deer, to help with controlling the weeds and disease really in the crops. Soil analysis, we again took advantage of some of the funding that was available and had all our fields, we soil sampled all our fields a couple of years ago. Before that, we probably did some of the fields, but we never did the whole farm. So that was a good opportunity for us to have a good look at our soil. And I would say try and do it yourself if you can, because it makes, once you see the soil for yourself and see what's living in it, hopefully see lots of worms and things, it puts the data that you get. When we got our data back, we're like, yeah, that makes sense why that field wasn't as good as that field. And at the moment we're using it mainly for lime and manure spreading decisions, but obviously in time we'd hope to see, now we've done the whole farm, hope to see the levels increasing and getting better. And just a note, we used what 3-word where we sampled our soil, just out of interest to see if that makes it more accurate in future, if we can take samples from the same places. But we're going to aim to, I think, continue doing that every 5 years. So as much as they want you to do two things of the whole farm plan at the moment, we're quite happy that we'll tick them all right now, which is really good. So if we can continue to try and stay a step ahead, that's where we like to be. That makes sense. Then just the last slide, I think, was just a review. Yeah, so basically I would say out of all of the plans, just try and use them as best. If you're spending your time and your energy and your brain doing these plans and thinking, try and make it useful for you. And again, I think trying to look and thinking about these things before you have to do them. It's easier said than done. There's a lot of things going on, but I say that the whole idea is to look at it from different angles. So it's trying to do it in a positive way, I think. Sorry, that was all a bit rushed. We got the slides.
That was really good, Kate. Thank you very much. I know that you hopefully had it much slicker in your head, but I still found that very interesting to look at it at the farm level. So I really appreciate that overview. Any questions for Kate at this time that anyone would like to ask, or pop in the chat? One of those things, Kate, where I think you've answered everyone's. One person. So Mike's asked, what soil data is required for the plan?
Don't know if there is any. It's maybe basic.
It's the.
It's my husband will probably know, but
I'm pretty sure it's soil. It needs to have soil carbon, and then the basic soil
pH
and NPK and a few others. I can't remember exactly what ones it is, but
I can send out some information with the recording of this, just on some of these things as well, just as a sort of checklist. But it is very sort of entry level stuff that we're kind of looking at. So basic soil parameters. As Jenny McCallum said, it's the routine analysis plus the soil carbon. So I think it's the soil carbon thing that's a bit new to everyone, but I can also send out some details on this. Any other questions at all at this stage? Oh, well, there you go, Kate. You got everything answered. So we'll now shuffle on next to Ian, who's going to talk a little bit about paperwork.
Hi, everybody. Yeah, Ian Davies. I was second generation farmer, 20 miles north of London. We ran a mixed beef and arable farm across rented and eventually land that we owned as well. But I also fell into managing rivers and flood emergency response for the Environment Agency in the home counties for 23 years, which I retired from 11 years ago. 3 years ago, we sold the farm, and we've retired to the Cairngorms for a peaceful life. But I still get very, very involved in the whole nature-friendly side of farming. So farm plans and data. I mean, at the moment, it seems as though everybody wants farms data. Most of them don't want to pay for it. Most of them think farmers have got nothing better to do with their time, or seem to think they've got nothing better to do with their time than gather data and hand over. And as anyone who has farms knows, it's bad enough just doing the essentials day to day without trying to actually keep everything written down and maintain huge amounts of data. So I smiled when Kate said, if we've got to do it, we might as well get something out of it. And that's always been one of my bugbears. My father he wasn't keen on collecting data for things, held everything in his head. And I can clearly remember him complaining that we had to do cash flow forecasts for the bank and that sort of thing, and saying, well, it's going to be wrong. Why should we put all this effort into doing it? And the answer to that is that once you've got it written down, you do the best you can. Once you've got it written down, you can then compare how it turns out at the end of the year and see that it's different, see where it's different, and actually start to think about why it's different. And that's where you really get the value from it. Then with my Environment Agency background, I came across the public sector and their absolute insistence on tying everything down data-wise. And the discussion I was having with Nim a couple of weeks ago about this was timesheets. For the first half of my career managing rivers, we just used to scribble down what we'd done on a sheet of paper once a month and hand it in, and that was fine. Then they moved to a system where we had this fancy online IT system, and we were expected to allocate our time to a whole series of different codes and down to tenths of an hour. Why anyone came up with tenths of an hour, I don't know, because it doesn't work easily in minutes. And the question I kept asking and never got a decent answer to was, well, what's the value in this? Because I'm quite happy to go to follow procedure and do things if I can see value in it. And I never did see the value in that. Nothing ever changed about how I worked as a result of the time I was recording. So it seemed as though it was just recording data for its own sake. So in the farm context, coming back to the farm context, the question in the back of my head all the time is, why am I doing this and what use is it to me? Now, clearly, in the context of the Scottish whole farm plans, the first reason everyone's going to be doing it is to enable access to the support payments. And fair enough, I can understand that there has to be some return to the government in return for the money that's coming in. But then beyond that, as Kate said, you might as well make it useful to you. So it's a case of thinking very carefully about what data is useful to you and how you go about making sure that that's where you put your time in on the recording, the monitoring, and then looking at don't just do the plan and put it on the shelf and forget about it. Half of the value is in looking at it, reviewing it every year and saying to yourself, well, have we actually done what we said we were going to do? And if we haven't, why not? Do we understand why not? That then helps you to focus much more clearly on where you need perhaps some advice from other people, maybe professional advice. It might just be that you can work it through by chatting it over with neighbours. You'll also find when it comes to trying to produce this whole farm plan, no one has all of the necessary skills to answer all of the questions. You do your best, but then you might be surprised sometimes how some of the people who actually visit the farm at different times, some of the suppliers, some of the neighbours to the farm, may have some interesting skills that you're not aware of. I mean, Kate was talking about trying to do a biodiversity audit. Calling somebody professional in to do that sort of thing very soon gets extremely expensive. You may well find that there are people in the local area who have those skills and are prepared to help you in working out what you've got or what you could do to make the things that you've got better. And so it's about trying to be clever with where you put your effort and how you do it, because there really is no point at all in just going through things for the sake of it. That's about all I had to say at the moment, but I'm quite happy to discuss it in more detail if anyone's got questions.
No, I think that's great. Does anyone have any questions or any chat and things that they'd like to add at this moment? Or we can just open it up for discussion at this stage as well. Go on, Martin.
Yeah, I just wanted to add, I think that's around what data works for you. How can you get benefit from that? I think it's really important. And I think it also helps, particularly those family businesses or what, with husbands and wives, family, older generation, younger generations. It can help build those discussions around what are you trying to do with your business? What are those things? And have a focal point of sitting around a table and discussion the whole business and who's involved in and responsible for doing what's, and sort of building that succession planning and sort of using it as building blocks. Spend a bit of time on the bits that really interest you, knowing some of you have to do some of the bits that may not be so interesting, but it's then questioning what you've done and how that's improved things. And for my own business, I've found having data and having people collecting data with us or for us really powerful, because it makes you think and ask questions differently of, are we doing the right thing? Are we going in the right direction? Can I evidence that I have actually, I think I've made better soil health, but have we got some data to make it so I can actually convince or encourage other people to say that these pathways are a good pathway? So I think that sort of using the data that empowers you as the farmer and the crofter is really important, not just seeing it as a burden.
Yeah, I think that's really true, Martin. I guess one of the things that I feel like I've heard in discussions, maybe more at the sort of policy end of it, so sort of slightly depressing small sandwich discussions with those in the rural affairs side of things, is that this whole farm plan feels really laborious for some small farms, particularly for maybe some of our older farmers who've, got a way it works for them. They're doing these things. A lot of crofters as well, particularly, are really struggling. And, they may only be claiming sort of like 2.5 grand, couple of grand, and, through BPS and, LFAS. But actually, that pays for your heating. These pay for, keeping the farm ticking over in your home. And I think this is where it's actually that change is quite scary for some of the smaller ones. So we have been advocating that, whole farm planning is a good principle, but maybe for smaller producers and farmers, actually it isn't the full requirement spec that's required for them. Because again, these things are scalable. If you're only talking a couple of cows, some in-buy and a few other things, then actually should you be pushed to going out there and sampling all your soil? Any other questions for anyone at any stage? Jess had asked whether there'd be material that's sent out for people who want to put this into practice. Absolutely. I'll send out some basic information following up with this, along with the recording of the webinar. That's just information on what the whole farm plan looks like, and also some other resources as well. So Alex has just asked, when you get someone in to make a plan, is that an agency? So yeah, we're talking an agent at that point is what's doing for them. However, that is quite expensive and quite pricey. So I guess I would ask what you're getting for getting an agent in, because sometimes I think, you can actually find these skills around. And also remember, they're not asking for a full environmental impact statement on these things. Ian?
On that point, just bear in mind that an awful lot of agents who offer services like that will be working from a template for the advice that they give. And if that's good for agents, then it should be good for farmers as well. So if you're really struggling, try and find someone who's already done their plan and talk to them and see whether they're willing to share it with you and whether you can get ideas from it. It's a clear way of trying to get a better handle on what you actually need to do. And these are new in their implementation. Everyone's learning as we go along. So there aren't going to be any distinctly wrong answers from the start. There's just going to be levels of right answer. And over the years, the plans will gradually pick up more and get more and more involved and more useful. So don't expect to come up with a perfect plan from year one.
Kate?
Yeah, I can talk through what we did and I suppose how you can make it cheaper or how you can do things yourself. Animal health plans, I know for some audits and things, sometimes it has to be done by a vet, but not necessarily for the whole farm plan. So I know there is definitely templates and things that could get you started. And sometimes, obviously I'm a vet, so I do ours, but a lot of the time it's the first one that takes all that time and effort. And if you sit down with a vet and with your vet and get a really good initial one, you can actually ongoing probably do it yourself. It's just that initial go through of your whole farm. Biodiversity, at least at the moment, I think they're just asking for a habitat map, which you can do yourself. So you can go sort of as basic as a map and having a look at your farm, and whether that probably change in the future and they'll want more information. But initially, that's definitely doable yourself. Carbon audit, the AgriCalc, we've paid people to do it in the past and then done it ourselves. And I think you can, I don't know how much it is, but I think there might even be a way of doing that for free, or I don't think you get as much information, but you can do it quite cheap. The pest management is just online. And then soil analysis, we found just a lot cheaper doing it yourself. If you're paying for someone to dig holes in your field, you can save that money by doing it yourself. So if that helps anybody, that's I'd say so the 3 words, just to then when you go back and do it yourself, you know where you did it last time. If that's helpful for anybody.
Indeed, Mike's just mentioned that Nature Scott are actually developing an app to support the mapping of biodiversity audits. And if anyone is interested from that and would like to maybe be part of it, then let me know, because they are looking for some people with a farming background or land where to actually test some of these out and make sure these tools are actually fit for purpose.
Just onto that, we've used something called Land App before. So we sell our data through Waitrose, and part of their nature section of their business, they're wanting to look at all the habitats on all their farms. So that was free to use, and it was really good, actually. And you can choose whether you share that data with them or not. But we got you can just use it and make a map of your farm without paying anybody. You pay to get really in-depth maps, but I think you could get 5 or 6 free on them. Yes, the land app was very good, I would say.
Ian.
Yeah, it sounds like there would be an opportunity for some sort of coordinated local workshops or sessions where groups of farmers can get together to look at this together. And those who are actually further down the road of doing them share their knowledge and experience with the others. I'm a great fan of farmer-to-farmer knowledge exchange rather than paying paid advisors for it if it's at all possible. And yeah, I would think that there's an opportunity for those sort of meetings to be set up in key places across the country so that people can just drop in and have a look and actually get a chat to others and get an idea of what's involved, what needs to be done, what information sources are there.
We do actually have an event of this coming up. So Ruth, who's on our committee, she's an accidental farmer, she will say. She's now a mixed farmer, but she's going to be basically throwing open her kitchen on the 22nd of January in Dumfries and Galloway, and just laying out all the farm plans that she has on a kitchen table so everyone can have a look at it and have a natter about it and having a chat about what it is that will work for everyone. But I think it is this key thing of, yes, there is compliance. Yes, it is another hurdle to get over, but why don't we make sure those hurdles are actually like at least the species and data that we actually want around, and then how we use this to actually kind of benchmark for actually improving on nature. I think this is going to be a real question for us who are sort of farmers in the nature-friendly farming sector to have a think about.
I think there's a real opportunity as you develop those whole farm plans and the sort of soil health, environmental, and other things is looking beyond your farm and of collectively changing, collective investment, collective responsibility for a water catchment, or where there's private investment for nature restoration or climate or whatever. How do you work together? Because those farm clusters can really add value, having a private funder to come to work with many rather than having to work with lots of individuals. So I think once people get their head around it and work out what's good for them, talking to neighbours and others around joining up some of approaches and thinking about bringing funding or outcomes that work in landscapes. So where does nature connect? Where does water connect? There's some real values that can be built from it, but start with something and then work in communities and in organisations to build on it to get best value from it.
Yeah, and I would argue that unfortunately we're on a back foot here in the Scottish context because we don't really have functional farm clusters. If you want to see a really depressing map, go onto the Game and Conservation Wildlife Conservation Trust site and have a look at their farm clusters map that was produced by Fiona Torrance, because basically you can see all of the activity and all of that knowledge sharing that's happening across England and Wales, and then there's pish all in Scotland, and it's just depressing.
And I think that's a clear ask for governments and administrations in Scotland of how do they put some facilitation and some support to that. In an England context, government are looking at doing some more, but it's about, it's hit and miss and what will happen. But also there is private funders who will want to fund farm clusters, water companies, fund out foundations, trusts, others in corporates, just to put someone there to coordinate something. So yeah, it's a clear ask for government, but there's also an opportunity to think who else in your catchment, in your landscape, may want to help draw this together and facilitate a group of farmers driving some action.
Yeah, and we're really lucky that there is a project that's been funded through the Knowledge Transfer Innovation Fund, which has been led by Propagate and is a regional basis. So for those wanting to kind of get involved in farm clusters, there are going to be 8 new ones started across Scotland in the next few months. Mike, you've got another question for us?
Yeah, I was just going to say that I think, yeah, the facilitation fund in England has obviously been very effective, and it's allowed, cluster farming to develop, which unfortunately we don't have here. So perhaps, securing a budget to do that in Scotland in tier four funding and in the new rural support scheme might be an opportunity, and perhaps we should be advocating for that. And I was just going to ask about Martin in terms of private finance to support your more sustainable farming systems, across clusters. I mean, where do you envisage that sort of money coming from, and how would it be managed? Because it's quite complex bringing sort of private finance into nature recovery and farming. Yeah.
So in many parts of the country, other than I think currently a lot in Scotland, the Nestle's, the brands, supply chain brands need some of the data you're going to be collecting. So it's about where's the quid pro quo if we can give you the data, but we want some support back to collect the data and sort of benchmark each other. Some of the water companies have got money, some trust foundations, some river catchments, river trusts. There is actually several pots, but it's this asking questions all the time to other organisations of who can help us. Who as a farmer, I'm willing to do some if I get the support. But who is the data valuable to, and who are we demonstrating that to? So I'm always asking the question of if I'm getting something, what do you want? And if I'm giving something, what do I get back? But if you're supplying any produce to any supplier, ask them what support they can give, because there are the Lens local enterprise networks, and there's one in Scotland now, there's one in the southeast.
We're just about to start one in the borders as well.
Yeah, I know there's stuff coming. So that's about bringing collective funding from councils, from supply chains, from all sorts to deliver outcomes. So I think we need to be proactive as farmers to drive some of this from bottom up rather than wait for it to come top down, and sort of going to say, look, we can offer these goods and services from our landscape. We can produce food, alcohol, animal feeds, but we can do this other stuff as well if the funding model works for our businesses, and that whole farm thinking delivers for us as businesses, but it delivers outcomes that others can value.
Great. Is any other questions from anyone, or anything else that they'd like to ask, or even just bring up as a discussion topic in the last 5 minutes?
Martin beat me to mention Lens, and I've just stuck a link in the chat to the Loch Leven projects that's already running up here, so that people can get an idea for what's going on there. That's a clear example of where some very, very well-funded corporate bodies are getting involved with farmers at scale to deliver nature improvements. And yeah, there's some substantial money available through that.
So last call for any questions or any other topics of conversation that anyone wants to open with. And if there isn't any, then I'll put it round to the speakers just for their final comments on, yeah, so you've got a whole farm plan, or you're thinking you're going to have to do one. How can you actually make it useful for yourself? Martin, do you want to go first?
Yeah. So for me, I think it's not looking at it as a burden and as another thing to do is how do you make this really work for you, but also recognize, all farming isn't perfect. We have challenges, and we're not compliant in everywhere we can. But how do we show that progressive upward benefits over a number of years, and focus on the things that also give you enjoyment and value back, not just see it as a piece of paperwork that is a challenge and a chore. And if there's family members in the farm business that can enjoy doing some more of that, give them a role and opportunity. Find the skill set you have within your businesses and in the structures you have to unlock potential.
Yeah, that's a really nice way to think about it, is that it's a team effort, really. And it's about building a farm plan that actually works for you and your business and your family, not just one that just gets you over that hurdle, because you're always going to see it as negative. Every few years that you come around to doing it, you're going to hate it, you're going to despise the process, and then you're never going to have gotten any benefit from it. Okay.
Yeah, similar to Martin, just trying to keep it useful, and as I say, try and not leave it to that last day that you've got to do it. Try and do it, at least piece it into your weekly admin or your monthly things, and just try and think, oh, we'll get that done now. Or as I say, especially with the animal stuff, you can be doing it as you're going. And just try and find some enjoyment or interest in it. As I say, if you can compare different years for any of your data that you get, hopefully the way you're farming is improving things, and if you can see that, it gives you a good boost to keep doing what you're doing.
Stuart, in the background, any other thoughts on this?
Just reiterating what Kate said. It is like Kate does it, and it's quite interesting just when you would then have a talk about it over the kitchen table, even with my mum and dad, and just kind of knowing what you're doing. It takes you away from just the day-to-day running of the farm, what's on today and what's on tomorrow. It's like, how are things over the whole year or the whole 2 or 3 years, or even just the last month, just to give you a bit of see what's actually going on, and you can have a chat and go from there, really. So
yeah, I think you're right. I think it's a good way of kind of defining chapter ends, isn't it? And there's points for reflection, which when the farm is busy and the admin burden is growing, actually gives us that opportunity to just go, oh, I'll look at everything we've done.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of data you can put in that you don't, it's just data, and some people will really love it, but sometimes just having the basics, like 5 or 6 things to compare each year, rather than having too much in depth on every single cow or every it's just keep it.
And you can always add to it as simple. Well. It's just keep starting simple. As you say, even with your soil, just do the baseline, and then if some part of it interests you, you can always do a bit more. But it's just starting somewhere.
Just a little technical thing with the soil, like Kate mentioned, we do it with what 3 words, and so you just get on your phone, go to that point. It's easy the first year because you just record wherever you want to go, but we take 3 different points in each field, but at each point, we kind of go within a 5-meter radius of where we're at that point, and just take about 10 different samples. So it's random, but it's keeping it fairly well, so that next time you do it, you're going to take from the same 3 points of the field, and as good as you can. It works well with us, and in what 3 words, it's not really a technology. It's technology, but it's simple, so it's not like a computer program is going to get outdated or anything by the time you come back to do it again. It's just simple. It's just a simple thing.
Ian, your final thoughts on it? I think I saw you trying to nudge the dog back out the door there.
Yes, yeah. Guilty. Just following on from what Martin and Kate have said, make it part of your farm story. Get it to help you to see where your farm's going, in all of those different aspects. If when you're talking to other farmers, you can very easily recite and tell them what your fertilizer use has done, or what your cropping pattern's done, and things like that. But when you start getting a few years reviews of old farm plans, you can also reel off without thinking too hard what's happening to the biodiversity on your farm, what's happening to your soil health, that sort of thing. These are all stories, parts of the story of the farm, which are becoming more and more important in persuading the public that we do actually try to look after the countryside, and that we should be allowed to get on and carry on managing the land.
Yeah, thank you very much, Ian. Well, thank you all for attending today. I know that farm plans are a bit of a dry subject, so I do appreciate your time and effort on it, and thank you all for just sharing your experiences of doing this as well. If there's any questions or anything, then there is email address in the Eventbrite, or you can just get in touch with us directly, and feel free to ask any questions. At the end of the day, we're here to support you because we're all working towards an environment where nature-friendly farming is the predominant farming type. Okay, thank you very much. Bye
Thanks
now,
all.
everyone.